Yo everybody, it's me, everyone's friend, me and Buster Green, and today I'm going to review the classic 1960s French film Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard, and I will somehow connect that film to 1985 classic Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Let's see how I do that. Alright, so I've been going over some French New Wave films lately, seemingly at random. A few months ago, I previously reviewed the film Hiroshima Mon Amour, which was excellent. That film basically uses as an idea to critique the atomic bomb, an idea to critique white guilt, the healthcare system, and I found it completely in line with modern films that critique World War II, like Oppenheimer and Godzilla Minus One. So, how I got to Breathless, about a month ago, I read out this interview with Yoshiyuki Tomino, where he had a couple of random movie recommendations, and the one that really stood out to me was his very strong recommendation of the movie Breathless. So yeah, check out that full video if you want to see more of that. He went on a several minutes long rant about how good Breathless is, and about how apparently he watches it once a year for some weird, deeply personal reason. So yeah, Breathless is a weird little movie. The French title is About des Soufflés, which more literally translates to out of breath. However, that also looks suspiciously like the English phrase about the souffle, which would kind of make for a hilariously racist French movie title. I think I kind of want to make a movie called About the Souffle now. Souffle. Alright, so the movie is a pretty quick watch. It's a very simple story. It's mostly a light character study between these two characters. There's Michael, played by Jean-Paul Belmondo, and Patricia, played by Jeanne Seberg. Now, the film is kind of literally about the relationship between the two of them, about the way they have sex, about the way they understand each other, and bigger than that, it's about the way other people understand a foreign language when they're in a foreign country. Now, here's the briefest summary I can give you of the film. The film has maybe 4 or 3 acts, 4 if you count the bridge. I'm going to count the bridge. All right, so Act 1 is the intro. Belmondo plays Michael. He's a gangster, and he's kind of models his entire look and persona around being a ripoff of Humphrey Bogart. So he's this gangster, he's this cop killer, and he's all around a very bad guy. He's the kind of guy that most women would want nothing to do with, except despite that, he's a very manly man, he's a very muscular man, and he's got that swagger, he's got a really interesting theme music that makes him kind of sound like the shark from Jaws, but cooler. And anyway, at the start of the film, he steals some cars, kills a cop, and that gets the ball rolling because what's going on here is he's a criminal piece of shit, he's on the run from the law, and these are the final days of his life. Meanwhile, then we have Patricia. Now, Patricia is by all accounts a very successful woman. She's a girl, she's in college, she's a successful exchange student from New York City, living in Paris, and she's a reporter for the New York Herald Tribune, once again living in Paris, being like a French foreign reporter. Now, she's done extremely well for herself, and she's like, living it up, having a great time, living and working in France, and learning about another culture. Now, the thing that this movie is about is that in the end, Patricia fundamentally does not understand France or the French language, and the film kind of plays that up and makes it relatively clear that overall in the end, Patricia has kind of like an almost sexual fetishization of France and the French people. And the film overemphasizes this by zooming in on her biting her lips or chewing on random objects, showing she has this weird oral fixation whenever she's getting in the mood and contemplating her sexuality or just being turned on by French people. Now, it seems like Patricia just came to France to find a French guy to bang, and, well, by all accounts, she did, because she shacked up with Michael, who, once again, most French women could tell is just an obvious gangster. And that brings us to Act 2, which is just a long talk between the two of them in bed. So yeah, they go to bed together, and Act 2 is kind of boring by modern standards. It's a big chunk of the film set entirely in the bedroom. It's like 40 minutes of them just sitting in bed talking, and it eats up a majority of the film's runtime. Yeah, it's just them in bed. It's the 60s, so they don't show any implied hardcore sex between the two of them. Just a lot of cuddling, kissing, philosophy, and God, there's so much philosophy. Is this what people aspire to? Going to France, getting a philosophy lecture from their romantic partners? But yeah, all that really happens in Act 2 is they do the deed, and then they spend 40 minutes just laying in bed, either doing it again, talking again, telling poems to each other, talking about how they're going to run away to Italy. Patricia thinks she's pregnant at one point, but maybe she's just saying that to trick Mikkel into loving her, and yada yada. They finally get out of bed 40 minutes later. Now, one also thing I want to point out about Act 2 is that Patricia talks a ton here, and she talks so much here that I noticed that she has the worst French accent I've never heard in my life. Now, I want to say that I can't speak French. I don't know French. I only know English, and by all accounts, I took one French class in the 6th grade, but I forgot everything. But what I'm getting at here is Jean Seberg is speaking French with this unmistakable, very gritty Boston coffee accent. And I would say that the film is maybe even overemphasizing her accent to make her seem like more of an outsider and to show she doesn't really have a full grasp on the French language. Because I assume Jean Seberg lived in France for some time, and I assume she could talk French better than this. Like, French is a very smooth language, but she has like literally the most unsmooth French I've ever heard, which once again has that really like Boston, Quagmire kind of Newfoundland, North England accent tone. Now, I haven't seen any of Jean Seberg's other films, but yeah, I really think that she's putting on a fake accent to overemphasize that she's American in the film. And I would say that maybe her accent is the key to this film. Now, that brings us to Act 3, the bridge. And the bridge of the film is funky. Now, I've noticed that a lot of films in the 1960s have these bridge moments, and a lot of modern films don't. I kind of think they should be brought back. So to re-explain what a film bridge is, in a 60s film, it's like the bridge in a song where the musician changes up the style for a second. In a movie, what they're doing here is they're showing you a different connected piece of the same reality. So in the bridge of this movie, the film stops being a film between these two people, and it's suddenly shot like a reality TV show. It's shot on handheld cameras, and Patricia goes to work where she interviews another French New Wave film director, Jean-Pierre Melville. Now, that sounds boring at first glance, and it should be, except almost every single question at the press conference that is given to Melville is hilariously another question either about existential philosophy or sex, or a mix of both, continuing the themes of philosophy and sex that start in Act 2. Now, Melville says some very based and very hilarious shit, that all women in America aspire to be dominatrixes, but that's America's problem. Cheaters are worse than people who run away. Men only need money because their women need money. And that his greatest ambition is to become immortal but still die, which itself can be taken either literally or figuratively. I'm going to take it literally and raise a toast to Melville because he's totally dead right now, but I can feel his based immortality from a mile away. But yeah, for all those base takes he had, those also once again loosely tie into the themes about men and women and their relationship to each other. So once again, genius bridge work here. All right, so bridge is over, back to Act 4, movie continues. So Act 4 is the finale, and at this point, the police have started to come down at Mikkel. They've got wanted posters, they see him in the street, and eventually they start looking for him, and they eventually question Patricia. So Patricia basically instantly rats him out because she doesn't know what's going on, and she seems mostly oblivious to the fact he was a gangster. So yeah, she tells the cops where to find him. They find him right away, and at first it seems like he's willing to face the time, but then his friend tells him to fight the cops and throws a gun at him, and he doesn't know what to do. He runs away, and the cops shoot him to death. But as he dies, he realizes that Patricia ratted him out. So he fully curses Patricia for the role she played in his death with his dying breath. And Breathless, I get it. But yeah, he totally would have got away with it if he just hadn't shacked up with her. And that's how he died. And so yeah, then after he dies, the film reveals its final, biggest, and yet most obvious twist that Patricia's understanding of French is so freaking bad that she doesn't understand his final words or what he just said. The film ends on her just in total confusion at the situation. And that's a brilliant ending because now I have to completely rethink this entire film. I have to wonder just how deep does that confusion at that moment go? Does she know what she just did? Does she know what he just did? Does she even know who he was? Because everyone knew he was a gangster, but she didn't because she didn't speak French that well. Does she know why the cops just shot him to death or even why he died being so mad at her? Brilliant freaking ending. I gotta respect this movie for that. So the movie, on the one hand, is about a criminal who's hiding his crimes from his girlfriend, but that final additional context that her French was so absolutely poor, that changes everything. I have to wonder just how completely clueless she is, because in the end, he calls her disgusting, and that doesn't even register with her, because no one has ever told her off or insulted her in French before, because I guess she hasn't been there that long and hasn't made that many enemies up to now. Like, the end of the film has been debated for years because the French he uses is so weirdly personal that there's been a few different translations of it throughout the years. And like, maybe he's saying that she makes him want to puke, or maybe he's just saying that he's disgusted by her. But it brings into light all these questions about her understanding, her culpability, her capability of understanding French. And that makes me so completely instantly love this film. And now I want to rewatch it again just to look at her again and try to think about how she actually understands the words that's coming out of everyone's mouth, because that's such a genius setup. Anyway, that's Breathless. Now, beyond this movie, I'm going to say one more thing about Jean Seberg, because I'll probably never talk about her. This woman has one of the worst and most valid, crazy celebrity deaths I've ever seen. So I'm going to randomly mention that after this movie, Jean Seberg became rich from this movie. But in a complete fucking tragedy, she didn't want to be rich. So she donated her movie star money back to anyone who needed it. And one of the people she donated to was the Black Panthers. She was an early major financial benefactor of the Black Panthers as they rose up in the 1960s civil rights movement. And because she did this, she eventually got exposed by the FBI and the CIA. She eventually got blacklisted after she was exposed. And after she was blacklisted and couldn't work anymore, she eventually killed herself about 10 years after this movie in the 70s. No good deed goes unpunished. All right, anyway, let's talk about Gundam now. So tying it back to Gundam, like I said at the start, Tamino is a huge fan of this movie. I gotta thank Tamino because he made me watch this movie, and I did have a good time with it. I would honestly say Patricia's arc in Breathless is a complete one-for-one mirror of Reccoa Lando's arc in Zeta Gundam, as well as the fact that they both have the same haircut, and they kind of look alike if you side-by-side them. Now, refresher/spoilers for Zeta. Back in Zeta Gundam, Reccoa was originally with the AUG, but she switched sides to join the fascist genocidal group, the Titans, and seemingly the only real reason she did that was Paptima Scirocco. Scirocco was trying to take advantage of Reccoa sexually. She was fully aware of that, but for all extents and purposes, even though she knew better, she was totally into it, because Char had rejected her on the AUG side, and she had limited romantic prospects over there because pretty much everyone was like a teenager or like married. And anyway, so yeah, she switched sides, and later she ends up having a big fight with Emma, who also switched sides, and they have a fight to the death. And during this fight, Emma like demands she justify why she did it, and she can't really come up with a good reason other than like she was following her libido and her weird overinterpretation of what men are supposed to be and what females are supposed to be, and how she like lived her life according to her gender role. Now, I guess if I'm like comparing Reccoa and Patricia together, they're both guilty of the same thing. They can both be criticized in the same light, that they both ended up following very complicated men who were dangerous criminals, if not for any other reason, but they got sucked in by that extreme male charisma. Now, Reccoa has always been one of the weirder Gundam heroines. Like, I've heard a rumor in the past that Tamino would base the irrational motivations of certain characters in Gundam based on people he knew in real life, or how real people he knew reacted to crazy situations like in Gundam. But I have no doubt in my mind after seeing this movie today that Reccoa's final character arc is just one-for-one taken from Patricia and Breathless, because Tamino is such a big fan of this movie. And if anything, Reccoa is taking Patricia's arc further by actually showing what would have happened if Patricia was held accountable for randomly supporting her criminal boyfriend and turning a blind eye to his crimes just because they were so in love with each other. It's really a fascinating film, and it just shows the way that people can make excuses for their boyfriends and girlfriends out of love, even if their boyfriends and girlfriends are criminals, and how two people can be in love without ever properly knowing or even understanding each other if they've got a language barrier there. I think that's all I have to say, but now I want a souffle. Souffle. So rare, so genuine. I've only ever eaten one really good souffle in my life, and that was 20 years ago. But that souffle was still so good that 20 years on, I really want another souffle. Ah, the souffle I once ate. It was unforgettable. I wonder how many years I'll wait until I have another proper souffle. So I guess rest in peace, Jen Seberg, Jean-Pierre Melville, and Reccoa Lando, all gone forever. Is Belmondo still around? Apparently Belmondo and Goddard both died in the past 2 years in 2022. Wow. So Goddard was still active as a filmmaker until 2018? Wow. I'm going to have to check out some more of his later films. Apparently he's got another 40 years worth of films for me to check out. All right, anyway, yeah, this was a great film. I can confirm Yoshiyuki Tomino had some good taste here. All right, thanks for stopping by, guys. Let me know if you've ever seen this film. Let me know if you've seen Zeta Gundam. And yeah, if this interested you, you should check out that full interview I did with Tomino where he gives some more movie recommendations. All right, later, guys. Good night.